Good morning, good afternoon, good evening from wherever you are watching. This is Zuzana Mukumai from Intercultural Relationships Celebrate Your Differences, and welcome to the latest interview with Hannah in the series of real intercultural couples. Hello, Hannah. I'm so excited to have you here.
Hi, Susanna. I'm excited to be here as well.
Yeah, and it's super interesting combination because you are from Kenya and your husband is from Netherlands. So it's Africa and Europe, and I am sure we will have lots of to chat about. But before we jump in, can you tell us a bit more about who you are? What is your story? Whatever you would like to share with us and the women who are watching.
Yeah, hi. Thank you so much, Susanna, for this opportunity. What I can say is that I'm from Kenya and I lived in the Middle East for a very long time. I was living in Bahrain. And when I was in Bahrain, I was very active in the sporting field. I used to run a lot. I was playing tennis. And yeah, that's where I met my husband. I was living in Bahrain and my husband was living in Oman. And these are two countries that are very close to each other. So we were both in foreign cultures, and then that's where we met. I just have to say the good thing about Bahrain is that in Bahrain, intercultural relationships were never a big thing. I remember in my building block, we had about 30 apartments. And out of those 30 apartments, I would say about 90% of the couples living in that apartment were interracial couples. So yeah, it was not a big deal when we met when I was living there, and yeah, specifically we met because of a sporting event that was taking place in Bahrain. He had told me he was going to come and visit Bahrain on a specific weekend, and I was like, "Hey, okay, when you come to Bahrain, I can show you around. I've lived here for so many years. I know my way around." And when he gave me a date, I told him, "Oh, you can't come on that date because on that date we have a half marathon and I've signed up." So I told him to come the next weekend. I said, "Next weekend I'll be free. I can show you around." But I remember the specific half marathon had to be cancelled on that day because we had a desert storm. So it was cancelled. So again, I had to contact him and tell him, "Oh, don't come next weekend because the marathon has been cancelled. So we are doing it next weekend. So is there another date that you can come?" And he said, "Oh, I'm also a runner. So why don't I come and do the half marathon with you?" And I was like, "Oh, okay. So just come and do the half marathon with me. If we still have energy, I'll show you around Bahrain." So he came. I always say that our first date was we were covered in sweat because we both ran a half marathon. You know how it is after a half marathon, you're in pain and you're covered in sweat. And he said, "Okay, do you want to go for lunch? And after lunch, you can show me around." And I said, "If a man is going to ask you out when you're covered in sweat, he's a keeper." he's a And that's how we started dating. And less than a year later, we were married.
Yeah, it's beautiful. I love the story, and I didn't know that you live in Bahrain, and that's how you met your husband. So it's very interesting story. I think I haven't heard similar one. And maybe before we dive in, like your challenges, I got kind of intrigued. But you said like there is lots of like interracial, intercultural couples in Bahrain, and I have never been there if I don't count the airport in Dubai, right? That area. So if you can tell us a bit more like about like how life is there, or like what were the main differences coming to intercultural couples if you compare maybe with either Kenya or Netherlands, like something which comes to your mind which you would like to share.
Yeah. Talking of differences, I don't know whether our differences are based on our cultures or our personalities. I'm not very sure. But my husband, I like to say that my husband is typical left-brained. He likes to calculate everything. He's an accountant, so for him, it's all about logic. He's a hyper-rational. For him, about it's all about logic. For me, I'm a creative. It's not always about logic. 1 plus 1 is not always equals to 2. So yeah, we've learned to adjust. Like sometimes we're building a house at the moment and he wants to know the exact measurements. He's like, no, it has to be this length by this length. Make sure you measure it. And I'm like, it doesn't matter as long as it looks good, you know. So yeah, we do have this kind of, I can call it a friction when we don't see things from the same angle. You know, as I said, I'm not sure that it's because of the cultural differences or the personality differences, but we've learned to live with it. I don't know if we'll ever really cope with it 100%, because sometimes he's focusing on things that I'm like, it doesn't matter. And sometimes when I focus on something, you know, he's like, why are you making such a big deal out of it? But we've learned to accept our differences, and that's what makes us so beautiful. That's why, you know, I think it would be really boring if we were both the same. It would be really, really
Yeah.
boring.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I was laughing like when you said the example with like building a house and everything should be measured. I think it can play a role both like me being from Europe as your partner and my husband being from Africa as you. I see some correlations there because also like we moved to a new house last year and we had to do some renovation. And I think I would be exactly like your husband. Like we need to measure exactly, like to make sure everything is straight. And then
Mm.
he's like, "Oh, it will, yeah, it will be somehow." I was like, "So how you want to build a house when you don't know exactly how it's supposed to be measured?" So I think it can be cultural
Yeah,
as
it
well,
could be.
but also like I think the character plays a big role.
Mm. Yeah,
And
and
yeah, no, I wanted to say, no, I forgot it, so you can go.
I was just going to say some things that I pay attention to. Like I was telling him, oh, you know what? When we enter the master bedroom, I want, you know, like a small corridor. He said, why do you want a small corridor? I said it's for my mindset, just to calm my brain. You know, a transition from the noisy world. And he's like, what's a big deal? And I'm like, it's good for the brain. It's good for the mindset. And he's looking at me like, you know, the things you pay attention to, but we've learned to compromise. So I'm getting my corridor into the master bedroom. he doesn't quite buy he doesn't quite buy it. He doesn't understand why mindset, you know, it's good for the mindset when you have a corridor to calm your brain. And for hyper rational, it doesn't make sense. But yeah, we've learned how to compromise and accept our differences and laugh about them. We actually laugh.
Yeah. What I
Yeah.
wanted to say before and what I forgot was actually the way you said, like you learned how to live with the differences. And I think it's one of the things I used to hear it a lot. I don't know where it came from, but kind of that perception that when you have your soulmate or the person to stay for the rest of the life, you shouldn't have any like huge differences. But I think actually there are some differences we can accept and we can
Hmm.
learn how to live with it, and it's not a disaster. So I love that you are saying it because I think we don't have to agree on everything.
Exactly. And I think that's what makes it so beautiful, the fact that you don't agree on everything. It would be boring if we agreed on everything.
Exactly. Yeah. So like this is, and I am 100% with you about the like fun and joke sides. Like we do that a lot. Maybe not in
Mm,
the heat of the argument. That would actually make it worse if I make fun of him or he makes fun of me. But after when we like cool down, like then we can start joking about the situation, and I think that really helps.
exactly. Yeah, yeah. You laugh about it and you embrace it. Yeah.
Yeah. And right now, so you said you met in Bahrain, but right now you live in Kenya?
Yes, we do. Yes.
Yeah. So how is the life there, like for you as an intercultural couple, Africa, Europe? How is it? Are there any like challenges you would like to point out?
The good thing about where we live is that we live near the capital, and the capital, Bahrain, is very cosmopolitan, very vibrant. Like when my daughter goes to school, there are so many intercultural kids, mixed race children. So she's growing up in this environment where she sees everybody made around her being so different and the same at the same time, and she knows the parents come in and the parents both look different. So she's getting you. She's kind of growing up in this environment, which is good for her. And Bahrain, I beg your pardon, Nairobi. I think because Nairobi, we're such a, Nairobi is very touristy, so we get a lot of foreigners. We get so many foreigners. So I can't say that we face any challenges here in Kenya, but I think if we lived maybe outside, then like we travel a lot. So some places where we travel, we get stares. It's like they're together, because they're not quite used to it. But in Nairobi, I mean, like when we go to the mall, half the couples will either be dating interracial couples or married interracial couples. So in Nairobi, it's not a big deal. But I think outside, it would be a big deal, or maybe probably even frowned upon. Yeah, maybe. Oh, and I just want to tell you about an incident that we had in Qatar. Because in Bahrain, as I said, it was not a big deal. Even before we got married, we'd go out for dinner, and the waiter would refer to me as his wife, and they'd ask him, "Oh, what's your wife having?" They just assumed we were married. It was never a big deal in Bahrain. But one time we were traveling and we had to transit in Qatar, and we were in the immigration queue, and the immigration officers were sending all the couples to the same desk. The two of you go and check in at that desk. The two of you go and check in on that desk. When he came to us, he told us to go to two different desks. He came to us and he said, "You go to that desk and you go to that desk." But I had noticed all the couples were being sent to the same desk. So I said, "Oh, why are you sending us to separate desks?" I said, "But we are together." He goes, "No, you're not." I said, "Yes, we are. We're married." And he's like, "Where's the proof?" And I'm like, "I don't walk around with proof. I mean, what kind of proof am I supposed to walk around with?" And he was like, he seemed genuinely confused, And I was like, "Listen, we are married. We don't walk around with proof." And I showed him my wedding ring. I said, "I'm married. I don't know what other proof you need." But yeah, he did look surprised, which was shocking for me as well, because I was not used to this in Bahrain. In Bahrain, it was, "Oh, you're together? Oh, husband and wife, okay. We'll check you in here. You can have this stable together." So yeah, but yeah, I guess some people are just not so exposed to intercultural couples. That's how I saw it. So I said maybe he was just surprised that we were together. He probably thought we were just two people who were on the same flight or something. I don't know.
Yeah, no, it's interesting how people assume, and that made me remember another. I think it happened 2 or 3 weeks ago here. I was at the mall with my son, and as we were walking from one shop to a cafe, there was a Peruvian man walking with his 3 kids who were also mixed. His wife was, I think, Zambian from Zimbabwe. So we just like kept walking together. So it was his 3 kids, him, me, and my son, and we were going by chance to the same restaurant. And immediately we entered the restaurant. So they were like, "So table for 6?" We are not together. And it's kind of simple because our kids were the same color, and so they automatically assume like I am his wife. So that was really funny. And
Yeah.
your story made me think like how people automatically assume this is a couple or this can't be a couple.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but I do enjoy such situations. I use them as a teachable moment. I tell them, "Hey, yeah, we are married. This is very possible.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and you mentioned like that you live, so you live in Nairobi in Kenya, and you said like now like I have been in Nairobi. I know how is it, and it's similar probably to like Lusaka here in Zambia, the capital, like the way it is like with like different types of people, and I know that villages are completely different. So
Mhm.
I was wondering like if you go maybe to like for holidays or if you just go out of Nairobi, like what is it what you are encountering, like what people have like maybe challenges with or what people are excited about.
I think usually they're more of curious. Like how, I
Hmm.
mean, like Kenya, Netherlands, how did you meet? How did this happen? And when we say Bahrain, they're even more curious because usually they just assume that he came. As I said, we have a lot of tourists in Kenya. So they usually assume maybe he was a tourist and we met when he was on a tour, when he was on a tour. And I'm like, no, it was not on a tour. We met in a totally different country. So they get curious, and they want to know how we met. They want to know our parents' reactions. They're usually very curious, and I'm usually very open. And I ask them, do you have any questions? I'll be happy to answer. You know,
Mm.
yeah.
Yeah, it's similar here. I think people are very curious, and I don't know if you get that. I'm kind of curious because like you are also like Africa, Europe, but it's the genders are the other way around than in my relationship.
Yes,
So like
yes.
what often happen to me, and that drives me crazy. Like when we are in some places, maybe in a market or somewhere a bit remote, and I walk there and people start talking to me, and it looks like I'm walking alone, like that my husband is a ghost. Like they completely ignore him out and they just
Mhm.
talk to me. And it's really strange. And then sometimes like even men, they start talking to me and they're like, hey, this is my wife, like how you can do this. So I was wondering if you had a similar experience.
Well, the secret is to hold hands. So make sure you're holding hands. So because they probably genuinely don't think you're together. As I said, to them maybe it's a surprise, and then you tell them you're together. It's like, oh, you are. But that doesn't happen to us in Nairobi, not in Nairobi, but I guess in the remote places, there's this misconception. Oh, this blonde man. We have a lot of tourists from the Netherlands. It's like, okay, so he's here to buy, and we're gonna hike up the prices. Oh, this is 2,000 shillings. He's a foreigner. He's got no idea about the country, so we're gonna tell him it's 10,000 shillings or whatever. And we usually laugh because then I'm sitting next to them and I'm like, no, don't lie. That's not 10,000 shillings. And then they realize, oh, they're like, yeah, we're together. And it's not 10,000 shillings, it's 2,000 shillings. Because
Yeah,
they just think this tourist is here to spend money and he doesn't know the exchange rate. And, we can charge him whatever we want.
and actually, like if I can go a bit back, the way you said that people maybe genuinely don't think that we are together, I actually
Mhm.
never thought about that. So that was kind of like aha moment for me that like, is it really possible? Like because I never thought of this option. If we walk together, they can't like they think we are just random people walking this 5 seconds next to each other. So I never thought about that, and thank you for pointing that out. I think it's wonderful to see how other people can see things which we don't even notice.
Yeah, and if it's a marketplace, and this is not only in Africa, it's all over the world. If you're in the marketplace and they see that you're a foreigner, they think automatically they can confuse you. Georgia, in Tbilisi, and I went to visit him, and he was in the office, and I decided to go down and do some shopping. I had noticed there was a vegetable store just downstairs, so I went to the vegetable store and I bought the fruits. Oh, first of all, when I was standing in the queue, the guy at the till called me to the front. There were all these people, and he saw me and he said, "Oh, you come to the front. Come, you can pay for your fruits." And I found it strange. I thought, why is he asking me to overtake all these people? So I went. He told me the amount, and I paid, and I went. So my husband's friend came home in the evening. He said I'd been cheated. He said, you paid like 10 times what those fruits were supposed to cost. And fruits were very expensive in Bahrain. So when he gave me the price, I didn't question it because I was used to buying fruits at an exorbitant price. And then I understood why he had called me to the front. He didn't want me to see how much the others were paying. I thought he was just being nice. I thought it was just being nice, but I know when later I thought about it, I said he didn't want me to see how much the others were paying because the others were local Georgians. But when he saw me and I stood out like a foreigner, it's so obvious I'm a foreigner, and that's when he was like, oh, okay, I'm going to, there's a word we have for it, like confuse her, make her pay more, and yeah, since then I never went shopping alone. I always went with my husband because he said, oh, you've got no idea how much you paid. He told me that fruits were very cheap in Georgia. I had no idea. He said fruits are so cheap here. I was shocked when I found out the actual price. They were really, really affordable. But yeah, so I think it's the same thing. Back to the situation with you and your husband in the market. You stand out as a foreigner, and they're like, okay. we're going to charge her 10 times as much. She's got no idea.
And then I think everything changed once you live in the country. Like, of course, when you are the foreigner, you don't know the prices, but once you live, like you don't like let people to kind of exaggerate. And
Mhm.
like, because now when I live somewhere, then I usually go to the same market, or I used to. Now I don't go so much. We have a farm nearby who brings like vegetables directly from the farm to the house, which is amazing.
Oh,
But then when I knew the people and they knew me, so they know like I know the real prices. But also
yeah.
funny thing, when we used to go to Lusaka, to the capital with my husband, he's not from the capital. We are living in the second biggest city in Zambia. I knew the prices there, like for example in the local taxis. But when we were together, they always try to overcharge him, which I
Oh,
found also interesting on that presumption that he is there, like with the white lady, so it means he must have money.
oh.
And I was like, no, this is not the real price. And then what I love actually about Africa is like you can just start chatting with people. Nobody is looking at you in strange way. Like sometimes in Czech Republic, you just start talking to random people and they're like, oh, what's going on? So I just start talking to the people usually, and like that, I tell them like, look, if I was rich, I am not driving in this shared taxi which stops in every 100 meters. And it takes me 2 hours instead of 10 minutes. But I find it funny that like they used to overcharge my husband, who is Zambian, because he was with me.
Yeah, they're probably thinking, oh, he's very rich. Maybe, they met when he was working for some NGO or a big corporation in Europe, and that's how they met. Yeah, there's that stereotype. Yeah.
Yeah, and since we are talking of the stereotypes, maybe we can debunk some more. Since you also have partner from Europe, like, do you encounter some like other stereotypes, like either against him in Africa or maybe against you in Europe, which are completely not true?
Yeah, I think human beings we like to stereotype because I remember I think you posted something about people just making jokes and not even thinking about what they're saying. I remember saying, "Oh, so your husband is from the Netherlands?" And I said, "Yeah." And he said, "Oh, so he's always high, yeah?" And I'm like, just because Netherlands is a very liberal country where they've legalized weed does not mean that everybody from the Netherlands is always smoking weed. And I said there are countries where weed is not legal, and that's where you find the most number of drug addicts. So these are just stereotypes. And he was like, "Oh, I'm joking," and I said, "Well, it's a joke, but like when there are kids there and someone jokes and says, 'Oh, your husband is always high,' the kids might not understand. They might not get it." Yeah, there are all these types of stereotypes. Or there's a time, I think we're in the Netherlands, and someone commented and said, "Oh, so she just wants to come and settle in Europe. Be careful. She just wants to come and settle in Europe." And my husband said, "You've got no idea. She can't wait to go back to Africa." you know, and they just assume she's using this nice guy. And I said,
Yeah.
well, maybe who did that. It's unfortunate if you know somebody who did that, but you need to give people the benefit of the doubt. But this guy, we're now friends, and he's like, "You don't want to come to settle in Europe?" I'm like, I want the warm weather in Africa. Come, let's stay in Africa. The weather is so nice. Yeah, but this stereotype,
Yeah, it's
yeah.
funny how stereotypes really go like both ways. Like the way you said, like people think your husband is from Netherlands, so he must be always high. And when I did interview with couple of guys from Africa who live in Czech Republic, I think there was somebody from Zambia and also from West Africa. They both had the same experience that random people in the streets of Czech Republic, they come to them in the street just based on the fact that they're African, asking them if they sell drugs. And then one of them was saying like, geez, like how you are asking for drugs? I don't even smoke. I don't drink. Like how?
Mhm. It's funny.
So
It's
and
funny.
it's the same about like the stereotypes like about like people coming from like maybe Africa, or I heard it also about Asian people trying to get to Europe. It's like, for example, Zambians, they love their country, they are very like patriotic, like they are of course Zambian working like outside, but it's every country, right? But they like typical thing I would say about Zambians, like they just want to be like home is the best place. So, like for example, my partner, like my husband, he is not really like interested in living in Europe, but people have this kind of stereotypes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Actually, when I met my husband, that's one of the first things I told him. I said, honestly, I don't see myself living in a cold country. We have this beautiful weather all year round. And the good thing is my husband also likes the warm weather. And the good thing is the part of Kenya that I come from is not very hot, because we do have parts where it's so hot, it's so hot that he would be uncomfortable because he didn't grow up in such hot, humid conditions. But we met in a very hot country. The Middle East is very, very hot. And I
Mm.
told him, I love, eventually I want to settle in a warm country. So he was like, yeah. I mean, he didn't even think twice. In a heartbeat, he said, yeah, I want to live in a warm country. So yeah, so we're building a house, we're going to settle here, this is where we want to retire. Yeah, but yeah, I can see why the stereotypes are there. Because there
Yeah, no,
are,
and
I mean, we have to be
yeah,
honest, there are people who use marriage not as a just marriage, but as a marriage to move. Such things do happen.
yeah, yeah, and that's why I love doing these interviews, is actually to like show these other examples, because we always hear like the negative things in the news. We hear this like worst case scenarios, how somebody got married in Europe just to get visa and like then it didn't work out. So that's why like I love to hear like, for example, your story, that it's the other way around, like it, and that there are lots of couples who make it work and it's genuine, and that's why I'm so happy, and I really appreciate that you shared your story. And Hannah,
Yeah.
just to wrap up, like if you would give like your top advice to women who are in intercultural relationship, like what it would be, either specifically like between maybe Kenyan and Dutch, or African, European, or general.
Yeah, yeah. Regardless of the nationality, maybe it's a Kenyan and an Asian. I know a Kenyan who's married to a Chinese guy. Regardless of the different nationalities, embrace the differences. I think there's something so beautiful about being with somebody who grew up completely in a completely different culture, and then you marry the two. And before, there were studies that used to show that intercultural marriages don't work. Actually, it's the other way around. It's the other way around. It shows that intercultural marriages actually do work, and maybe it's because of the differences. The differences make it beautiful. And about the stereotypes and everything, use it as a teachable moment. With these stereotypes, just and see where the person is coming from. Maybe this is something they're not exposed to. Like the guy I told you who was in Qatar, and he was really surprised when we said we were married. I use that as a teachable moment. So next time he sees, a couple like us, maybe he won't be so surprised. And yeah, just embrace those differences. Just and I have to tell you one more thing. You talked about the drugs. We were in Nepal. My husband had a contract, a project in Nepal, and again I went to visit him. And people would come to me and they'd be whispering things, and I was like, "What's this?" And that's when somebody told me that they thought because I braid my hair, they don't know the difference between braided hair and dreadlocks, and they
Mhm.
don't usually have a lot of African descent people. And somebody said to me, we probably think you're from Jamaica or something. And he said, yeah, they think you're from Jamaica. So they think this is a good time to get drugs and everything. I was like, oh my gosh, I don't even smoke cigarettes. How the hell am I supposed to have drugs? Even I can't even stand cigarette smoke. But I just laughed it off, and I explained to them, no, and not everybody who looks like this is from Jamaica. And not everybody from Jamaica is here looking for drugs, okay? And
Yeah.
we laughed about it. I use this as
you're from Jamaica, and again, like lots of drugs. Just today, I was posting, I think it was on LinkedIn, that always, all of us, no matter where we come from, at some point we will be on the receiving end of the stereotypes. So sometimes it looks like about maybe Europeans, there is less stereotypes because the stereotypes are somewhere more south, but it's completely not true. Like we will be always I was just sharing about how there were lots of stereotypes about me when I was in Italy, and
Mhm.
like it's so humbling actually to realize that we are all just human beings, and the culture doesn't say what kind of people we are, or what country we come from doesn't say what kind of person you are, if you are a good person or bad person.
Yeah, beautiful. I like that. Yeah, yeah.
So that maybe can do for a ending of today. Thank you so much for coming. And you didn't mention in the beginning like what you do, because like the way you were talking, I could hear, and I know that you are a coach, and I could hear like I love the way you said, let's use the differences as a teachable moment. So I the coach in you is there. So if somebody loved the interview and they want to know more about you or what you do, where they can find you.
Yeah, thank you for this opportunity. If you want to know more about me, excuse me, I'm on Facebook and I'm on LinkedIn. I use my full name, Hannah Karanja. So yeah, come, let's connect. I help aspiring female entrepreneurs to turn their expertise into a business through online courses. And when I was doing this, I realized how big mindset was when you're an entrepreneur. So that's when I became a mental fitness coach. And it has helped me immensely, just knowing how to look at things from a positive side, and just always being in what we call sage, because we want to live a happy life. Life is too short. Life is too short, and no matter what people say, there's more good in the world than evil. It's just that what we hear is always the negative, but I always say there's more good than evil. You just need to explore, look in there, and you'll see the good. It's always there, just waiting for us to do.
Yeah, you see, I'm just smiling, like I feel already like positive energy, and I will put your links like under the video so people can
Oh,
find
thank
it.
you.
And I completely agree with you about the mental fitness. That's actually how we met, because both of us are like mental fitness coaches.
Yeah.
You help female entrepreneurs. I help women in intercultural relationships. So it's beautiful, and I'm very grateful that we met through this amazing platform. So thank you so much again for coming today, and have a wonderful day. I hope it's not too cold in Nairobi. Here we are freezing.
It
And
is.
if and if anybody who is watching, if you have any questions, just drop them in the comments. We will be happy to get back to you. So thank you so much, and everybody have a wonderful day, including you, Hannah. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Susanna.